You see, the problem with people like you is you move fast for the wrong reasons and freeze up when it's finally time to strike. You rush when you're scared. You panic when they stop talking to you. You run to prove something to people who already made up their minds. But when it's time to move precise, when silence is your best revenge, when patience is your sharpest weapon, suddenly you hesitate. You fall back. You second guess yourself. Why? Because deep down, you're still hoping to be understood by people who already showed you they don't care. You still think they'll come around if you just explain one more time. And while you're explaining, crying, begging, reacting, they're watching you sink. They're feeding off your confusion because they know the more you move out of emotion, the more mistakes you make. The more noise you make, the less power you hold. But when you move precise, quiet, cold, they panic. They don't know what you're planning. They don't know what you saw. And people fear what they can't predict. That's the real game. That's what they never taught you. Not in school. Not in your soft little friendships. Not in your clownish heartbreaks. Life doesn't reward chaos. It respects control. And if you don't got it, you get played. Simple as that. You were never meant to be emotional in a battlefield. You were meant to be calculating, focused, cold enough to walk away from what distracts you, but warm enough to remember who did what. I see you sitting there, wondering why things went the way they did. You're breaking yourself into pieces just to understand why they changed, why they flipped, why they ghosted. Let me answer that for you. Because they could. Because you were too available. Because you showed your hand too early. Because your loyalty was loud and your standards whisper quiet. That's not power. That's not precision. That's a walking target. That's an easy read. You gave them all your depth with no filter. You opened the vault before they earned the key. You gave them front row seats to your soul. And now you're shocked that they left before the show was over? Number, that's what people do when they know you won't bite back. That's what they do when they can smell your desperation beneath all that fake strength you post online. You're pretending to be over it, but they know you still care because you're still reacting, still looking, still talking about it. And that's not healing. That's weakness on display. You think strength is noise? You think power is in screaming your worth to people who never saw it? Number, real strength is surgical, silent, calculated. You don't heal by reacting. You heal by transforming. Quietly, precisely. You build in the dark. You plot in silence. And then you strike when no one's looking, when it's too late for them to stop you. That's how you move now. No more chaos. No more emotional storms. No more begging to be seen. From this point forward, you disappear into purpose. You vanish into discipline. You let every heartbreak be a blueprint, every betrayal a lesson, every silence a training ground, until one day you return. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove everything to yourself. You move like a ghost, present but untouchable, real but unreadable. And when they finally hear about what you became, when they see who you turned into, they'll regret ever thinking you were predictable, ever thinking you were soft, ever thinking they had you figured out. So go ahead, sit with the pain, but don't stay there. Get up, building plot, become dangerous, not loud, not reckless, dangerous. The kind of danger that smiles in silence, the kind that forgives but never forgets, the kind that doesn't explain anymore, doesn't chase, doesn't repeat himself, just watches, learns, and moves precisely. Because in this world, if you're not 10 steps ahead, you're already behind. If you're not hard to read, you're easy to play. And if you're not willing to be cold where it counts, you'll be warm for people who leave you in the snow. Now wipe your tears, fix your posture, and close your mouth. You've talked enough. You've cried enough. It's time you learned how to move like you mean it. They taught you that being loud means being strong, that speaking your truth over and over would somehow make people finally respect it. But let me tell you something, twisted and real. People don't respect what's always available. They don't hear what's always repeated. They tune you out. They smile at your weakness. They nod at your pain, then laugh behind closed doors because they know your moves before you make them. You're readable. You're exposed. You react like a machine, wired to fall apart every time they press the right button. And they know exactly where to press. That's the part that eats you alive at night, right? The fact that they learned you. But you never really learned them. You were too busy trying to show love when you should have been watching patterns. Too busy justifying their disrespect when you should have been documenting it like evidence. You see, precision doesn't come from love, it comes from awareness. Cold, detached awareness. You need to know what they're capable of. You need to watch how they treat people they no longer need. That's where the truth is. Not in what they say, not in the compliments they drop when they want something, but in how they act when your value runs dry in their eyes. When you stop entertaining them. When you finally stop feeding the ego they built off your loyalty. That's when you see the raw version of them. And if you've been precise, if you've been watching without speaking, you'll see the switch before they throw it. And you'll already be gone before the mask comes off. You think silence is weakness? That not reacting makes you look like you don't care. Number, silence is a test, and you're failing it. Because you keep filling in the gaps with your fears. You keep assuming their silence is strength when really, it's bait. They want you to snap, to fold, to call, to text, to beg, to prove to them you're still there, still broken, still trapped in the web they spun with fake love. But what if, for once, you didn't react? What if you just moved differently? What if you turned that silence into strategy? What if, instead of chasing answers, you started creating distance? Not to punish them, but to protect your mind from the poison they carry. To remind yourself that your peace is not negotiable, that your worth doesn't need their validation to be real. The Joker in me knows the power of silence, because I have watched people crumble when I stopped responding. I have watched the panic build in their eyes when their chaos didn't work on me anymore. That's the real revenge. Not a scream, not a fight, not an angry message at 2 a.m., but the cold calm of someone who has nothing left to prove. Someone who's finally accepted that not everyone deserves an explanation, or a warning, or a damn second chance. You have to move like the villain they think you are, but not with rage, with calculation. You walk away with dignity, not noise. And you don't look back, because you know your silence is the loudest alarm they'll ever hear. It wakes them up at 3 in the morning when they realize you're not coming back this time. It screams in their head louder than any voice message ever could. And when you move precisely, when you vanish instead of react, you become unforgettable. You become the lesson, not the memory. The lesson. The one they can't rewrite, the one they regret under their breath, but never admit out loud. And that's what scares them. Not that you were hurt, but that you healed without needing them, that you upgraded without warning, that you became dangerous without turning loud. The silence is your crown now. Wear it like armor. Because from now on, your emotions don't move you. Your discipline does. And that discipline, it starts by moving precisely. Now let's get to the real heart of it, timing. You want to move precise? Then you better learn that timing is everything. Not love, not words, not intentions. Timing. You could have the purest soul in the world, but if you show up too early, you'll look desperate. Show up too late, you'll look irrelevant. That's the curse of the untrained mind. It either jumps in too fast or hesitates too long. But precision, precision is a cold art. It means holding your cards so tight that not even your shadow knows what you're thinking. It means watching everything and saying nothing. Letting them think they've got you, that they're winning, that you're still broken. And then, right when they least expect it, right when they're laughing, right when they're relaxed, thinking you're still down, you show up different. You show up built. You show up silent, with power in your eyes and scars that turned into weapons. You don't tell them what changed. You don't prove anything. You just let your presence do the killing. Quiet, surgical, precise. People used to underestimate me. Hell, they still do. That's the trick. I let them. I let them laugh. I let them sleep on me. Because I know most people don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't. And you? You gave them a full map of your emotions. You told them when you're sad, when you miss them, when you're weak. You laid it all out thinking they'd handle it with care. But that ain't how the world works, kid. They don't protect what's precious. They exploit it. They'll use your feelings like strings on a puppet. That's what happens when you don't control your timing. You respond fast. You love fast. You believe fast. And then you bleed slow. But if you learn patience, real, cold patience, you learn to let people talk. Let them fake the smiles. Let them betray you. Let them expose themselves. And you just observe. No emotions, no warnings, just documentation. Because when you finally move, you'll know exactly where to strike. That's timing. That's control. That's what keeps you ahead in a world that wants to break you before you even figure out your worth. So when you're sitting there, staring at your phone, waiting for a text that's not coming, don't break. Don't send that message. Don't post that quote trying to make them feel something. You're better than that now. You're colder than that now. Your growth is silent. Your revenge is rooted in discipline. They expect a reaction, so starve them. They expect you to crawl back, so disappear. They expect noise, so give them nothing but distance and results. That's how you throw them off balance. That's how you flip the script. You're not here to win them back. You're here to rebuild so hard that the next time they hear your name, it stings. Not because you hurt them, but because you moved so damn precisely, they didn't see it coming. That's the goal now. Not love, not closure, not payback. Precision. Move like a ghost with unfinished business. Show up when they've forgotten you, stronger than ever, and walk right past them like they never mattered. Because that's what they did to you, right? They walked past your loyalty like it was nothing. They laughed at your pain. They picked someone else while you were breaking. So don't ever feel guilty for leveling up without them. They made that choice. You just made sure it cost them. And when the world asks you what happened, why you changed, why you stopped talking, why you stopped caring, look them dead in the eye and say nothing. Because if they couldn't hear your pain, they don't deserve to hear your peace. If they didn't respect your noise, they'll never survive your silence. And if they never saw your worth when you gave them everything, then trust me, they're not ready for the version of you that gives them nothing. So sharpen that mind, still that heart. Walk slow, breathe deep, and remember, the real ones don't announce the storm, they become it. And they never move loud, they move precisely. Good, because now we go darker, not for the sake of pain, but for clarity. You see, when you start moving precisely, you lose more than just people. You lose illusions. You stop romanticizing those fake friendships, those almost lovers, those temporary cheerleaders who only clap when you're small enough to make them feel big. You start to see what was always there, but you were too emotional to process. The betrayal wasn't sudden. The disrespect wasn't new. It was always in the details. The way they changed the tone when others showed up. The way they laughed a little too hard at your mistakes. The way they forgot the things you said unless it benefited them. You were too busy defending them, too loyal to see it. But now that you're sitting in silence, you're starting to replay it all. The words, the gestures, the excuses, and it's eating you up. Not because they fooled you, but because you let them. Because you saw red flags and called them roses. Because you called it patience when it was really just fear of abandonment. You didn't move precise. You moved emotional. You moved naive. You moved like someone who still believed that effort guarantees loyalty. That love, when pure, gets returned. But that's not how this place works. This world doesn't care how deep you feel. It watches how sharp you act. It respects how little you need to speak. And the moment you start moving like that, like a ghost with purpose, they'll all feel it. The shift, the absence, the silence. Let me explain something cruel but true. Most people never love you. They love what you do for them. They love your softness, your support, your consistency, your silence in moments when they should have been called out. And when that version of you disappears, they don't miss you. They miss control. They miss the comfort of having someone they could count on without earning it. So don't get fooled when they come back. Don't get caught up in their sudden regret. Regret is just hunger when they realize their new supply doesn't feel like you. But regret isn't respect. Regret isn't change. It's panic. It's craving. And if you move precisely, you'll recognize the difference. You won't respond to it. You won't react because you're not seeking validation anymore. You're studying patterns. And their patterns don't lie. They just reveal. It's not your job to fix people who broke you. It's your job to outgrow them so ruthlessly they wonder if you ever loved them at all. And that's not cold. That's clarity. That's survival. That's growth. Moving precise means becoming emotionally expensive. It means not everyone gets access. Not everyone gets explanations. Not everyone gets closure. You think you owe it to them? You think walking away in silence makes you a villain? Let them think that. Be the villain in their version of the story if that's what gives them peace. You're not here to rewrite their lies. You're here to write your own legacy. And that legacy begins the moment you stop talking and start calculating. The moment you stop reacting and start rebuilding. The moment you stop proving your worth and just become it. So here's what you do. You grind in silence. You bleed in private. You build when no one is watching. And when they finally realize you're no longer the person they could toy with, they'll circle back. Of course they will. The silence will drive them insane. The distance will expose their emptiness. But you won't be there anymore. Not as the broken version. Not as the desperate version. Not as the one who kept hoping they'd change. You'll be a different creature by then. Still sharp and untouchable. Because pain didn't kill you. It carved you. And now you move precisely. Let's go even deeper now. You know what they fear most? It's not your anger, not your rage, not your tears. It's your evolution. They fear the day you stop answering, the moment you stop proving, the second you no longer need to explain the fire they lit inside you. Because when you start moving with precision, they no longer control your narrative. You do. And it's a quiet kind of control. One that doesn't announce itself. One that doesn't need a stage. It's not loud like revenge. It's not theatrical like closure. It's surgical. It's disciplined. It's the kind of control that says, I could destroy you with what I know, but I won't. I'll just succeed instead. And that silence, it's deafening. That success, it's humiliating. That distance, it's unbearable for those who thought they could walk all over you forever. See, when they betrayed you, they weren't expecting you to wake up. They thought you'd stay broken, stay chasing, stay emotional. They never imagined you'd go quiet. They never imagined you'd take all that pain and turn it into fuel. But now you're walking different. You're moving slow, talking less, thinking more, and they feel it. Even if they don't say it, they feel it. That weight of being cut off from your energy, your light, your time. And the best part? You didn't slam the door. You didn't block them. You didn't curse them out. You just disappeared. Like smoke. Like a ghost who finally learned how to haunt with success instead of pain. You want real power? Then stop giving people the luxury of knowing how you feel. Stop offering your heart to hands that never earned it. Stop narrating your every move, your every plan, your every transformation. You think talking about healing is healing? Number healing is quiet. Healing is private. Healing is when you start changing the way you walk into a room. Not to be seen, but to be felt. You stop being loud and start becoming magnetic. You stop begging for love and start becoming love. And the people who once made you doubt yourself, they start watching from the outside, pressing their faces against the glass, wondering how the hell you became so unreachable. That's the revenge. Not hurting them, not exposing them. Just becoming so untouchable that their old games no longer work, that their silence no longer scares you, that their absence no longer wounds you, that their new supply doesn't intimidate you. Because when you move precisely, you realize something they never wanted you to figure out. You were the value all along. You were the one who made it real. You were the one who gave the love depth, who made the room warmer, who carried the loyalty without needing anything in return, and they treated you like you were replaceable. But now they're learning something else about precision. It comes with a cost. When you go silent, people are forced to hear themselves, and what they hear is ugly. They hear the lies, the manipulation, the ego, the cowardice. You don't need to expose them. They do it to themselves in your absence. You don't need to speak a word. Your progress becomes the loudest thing they can't ignore. So don't go back. Don't lower your energy just because they couldn't match it. Don't dim your light just because they didn't appreciate it. You weren't too much. You were just in the wrong room. You weren't too intense. They were just too shallow. And now that you know that, you move with intention, with power, with silence, with elegance. You don't rush anymore. You don't over-explain. You don't chase. You move like time is yours, like you've got all the patience in the world. Because real power doesn't need to rush. It arrives exactly when it's meant to. And when it does, it doesn't apologize. It doesn't ask permission. It just takes up space. So let them talk. Let them lie. Let them twist your name. But remember, while they're speaking, you're building. While they're laughing, you're becoming. While they're watching, you're moving. Quiet, focused, relentless. That's what it means to move precisely. No more heart on your sleeve. No more wasted explanations. From this point on, your silence is sacred. Your time is gold. And your moves, surgical, clean, unpredictable. You're not here to be understood anymore. You're here to be respected. And if they can't do that, then they can watch from a distance as you become everything they were too blind, too insecure, too foolish to value. And now we talk about self-control. Not the fake kind that you post online with captions about healing and peace and moving on. No, I'm talking about the real kind. The kind that keeps your fingers from texting when your chest is screaming. The kind that stops you from showing up when your mind is trying to convince you just one more time. The kind that makes you bite your tongue when you have the perfect insult sitting on your teeth, just waiting to be unleashed. Precision is control, and control is restraint. You want to be dangerous? Then stop letting your feelings walk you into traps, because that's all they are, traps. Every time you move out of emotion instead of discipline, you hand them your power. You give them evidence that they still live in your head. You confirm what they're hoping, that you're still broken, still unsure, still the same version they left. But when you move precisely, when you say nothing, when you do nothing, when you react with ice instead of fire, that's when they get scared. That's when they start overthinking. That's when the guilt kicks in, the curiosity, the confusion. And that's what you want. Not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer participating in theirs. See, when people lose control over you, their last weapon is to make you act like the villain. They want you to explode, to lash out, to fold in public, so they can tell everyone, see, that's who they really are. But what do? You give them nothing. You don't clap back. You don't expose. You just smile and disappear into greatness. That's the kind of precision that leaves scars. Because you didn't just leave, you elevated. You didn't just ignore, you leveled up. And they hate that. They hate that the chaos they built inside you couldn't hold you down forever. That the confusion they planted in your head bloomed into clarity. That the pain they left you with became your fuel, not your prison. People don't fear the loud ones. They fear the still ones. The ones who used to explain everything and now just walk away. The ones who used to beg for love and now only accept respect. The ones who used to shatter when abandoned and now become sharper in isolation. That's you now. Or at least, it should be. Let me make this real simple. Never let your emotions make a promise your discipline can't keep. You said you're done? Be done. You said you won't reach out? Don't. You said you'd stop explaining? Then shut the hell up. Don't become another person who talks strength but walks weakness. Don't become another motivational quote with no backbone. The world's full of people who say they're healing, but they're really just hiding. You want to separate yourself? Then do what most people can't. Stay silent even when you're burning inside. Stay still even when every nerve is twitching to react. That's real control. That's real dominance. And trust me, they notice. Even if they don't show it, they check your page, they wait for a post. They replay old messages. They search for signs. But you give them nothing. No updates. No reactions. No signs of struggle. You vanish with elegance and rebuild with rage. That's how the greatest revenge is served. Not with screaming, but with silence, wrapped in power. And maybe you're still holding on, still hoping they'll change, still waiting for that apology, that text, that I miss you. Let me kill that fantasy for you. Most of them won't say it. Not because they don't feel it, but because admitting it would mean they were wrong, and their ego won't allow that. So they'll suffer quietly. They'll pretend you didn't matter. They'll post their fake smiles, their new people, their new distractions. But when the lights go off and the noise dies down, that's when your absence hits hardest. And they'll sit there, wondering how someone they once had full access to became so unreachable, so unreadable, so untouchable. That's the price of mistaking your kindness for weakness, and the lesson they never thought they'd learn. When someone learns to move precisely, they don't return. Let's break the final layer now. The part they never prepare you for. Loneliness. The real cost of precision isn't just silence or control. It's isolation. And let me tell you something you don't want to hear, but need to. When you start moving precisely, you're going to lose a lot more than people. You're going to lose parts of yourself that you thought were permanent. You'll shed old versions of who you were, the emotional one, the reactive one, the forgiving too much one. You'll feel like a stranger in your own skin for a while. Why? Because you've never operated without chaos before. You've never tasted peace without the poison. You're addicted to noise, to reaction, to needing someone to clap every time you rebuild. But precision isn't for the crowd. It's for the cold, for the focused, for the few. And it's lonely, brutally lonely. Because now, you're not looking for validation. You're not filling silence with calls or texts. You're just sitting in it, quiet, still, with your own thoughts. And that's where the demons come out, isn't it? That's where the guilt creeps in, the what ifs, the maybe I was the problem thoughts. But let me kill that lie for you. You were never the problem. You were just too loud with your loyalty, too generous with your energy, too soft with your boundaries. And now, all that's gone. You're finally starting to feel what strength really is. The ability to sit with yourself and not fold. When they left, they expected you to fall apart. That was the plan, even if they didn't say it. They thought you'd crawl back, that you'd need closure, that you'd still be checking up, watching, lurking, waiting for their return like a dog on a leash. But you surprised them. You shocked them. Not because you snapped, but because you didn't. Because the moment they walked away, you didn't chase. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You went dark. And that silence, that unbothered, calm, tactical silence, that's when they realized they underestimated you. That's when the power shifted. Because you finally stopped playing the role they cast you in. You stopped being the nice one, the maybe they'll come back if I stay good one. You became dangerous, not with violence, but with stillness, with evolution. You became unreadable. That's the real terror for people who once controlled you. They don't know what you're thinking anymore. They don't know who you're becoming. They lost access. And once people lose access to the version of you they abused, that's when the regret begins. But don't confuse regret with remorse. Don't think a sudden message means they changed. Most of the time, it just means their new game failed. Their new supply ran out. Their ego got bruised. So they come knocking. Not out of love, but out of loss. And if you move precisely, you'll spot the difference. You won't answer. Not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the cycle. You've upgraded in silence. And some doors, they don't need to be slammed shut. They just need to be locked forever. Not because you hate them, but because you love your peace more than the history, more than the memories, more than the fake loyalty they once offered. That's precision. Knowing when to walk away without warning. knowing that silence isn't revenge, it's protection. So sit with your loneliness. Let it burn. Let it shape you. Because if you can master the quiet, you become unstoppable. If you can thrive in your own company, no one can use abandonment against you again. And the next time someone tries to test you, tries to play with your energy, tries to manipulate your kindness, you won't react. You'll smile. Not because you're soft, but because you've seen it before. You've already won that war. You've already buried that version of yourself. Now you move like someone who knows the terrain, who doesn't flinch at silence, who doesn't fold at distance, who doesn't speak unless it's necessary. You've become the kind of person they can't play with anymore, not because you're angry, but because you're unreachable. That's what precision gives you. Not revenge, not popularity, but power. Quiet, cold, undeniable power. And that's worth every lonely night, every tear you didn't let them see, every message you didn't send, every storm you weathered alone. Because now, you're not healing. You're building, not reacting. You're observing. And when the time comes, you won't need to announce your return. The world will feel it. And the ones who lost you, they'll never forget how silent and surgical your exit was. And now we talk about value. Not the fake kind they pretend to see when it benefits them, but the real kind. The kind they only understand when it's gone. The problem was never that you weren't enough. It's that you gave everything before they earned anything. You moved too fast. You handed over your loyalty like it was cheap. You poured your soul into hands that were still dirty from holding others. And now, you sit there wondering, why didn't they choose me? But you're asking the wrong question. The truth is, they did choose. They chose control. They chose comfort. They chose temporary distractions that didn't challenge their ego. Because you were too real, too raw, too rare. You made them face parts of themselves they weren't ready to confront. And instead of rising to meet you, they ran. And you kept giving, kept explaining, kept bleeding out loyalty, hoping they'd wake up and finally see what was in front of them. But they weren't blind. They just didn't care. Not enough to protect you. Not enough to stay consistent. Not enough to match what you brought to the table. So stop blaming yourself. Stop trying to fix what was never yours to heal. They saw your worth, and they gambled it. That's not your shame. That's their loss. But here's the part most people won't tell you. You taught them value. You did. By loving them the way you did, you showed them what it feels like to be seen, to be understood, to be chosen, without games, without manipulation. And they didn't appreciate it. But one day they will. One day, when the thrill fades, when the lies catch up, when the temporary starts to feel empty, that's when your silence will start screaming in their memory. That's when they'll replay the things you used to say, the way you used to care, the little things you did they never acknowledged. And it'll hit them, not all at once, but slowly, like a sickness that builds over time. Because people don't regret losing you immediately. They regret it when they realize you weren't replaceable, when the attention fades and they finally see that your consistency wasn't ordinary, it was priceless. And by then, you won't be there. You'll have already moved on. Not in love with someone new, but in love with yourself again. In love with the quiet, with the power, with the version of you that doesn't beg to be chosen anymore. You see, the most dangerous person isn't the one who yells, cries, or fights back. It's the one who walks away, calm, quiet, unmoved. The one who detaches, the one who doesn't need closure, because their clarity was forged in silence. That's you now, or it will be if you stop looking backward, if you stop measuring your worth by how someone else mishandled it, if you stop giving your energy to people who only show up when it's convenient. Your value isn't up for negotiation. It isn't a clearance item they can come back for. When they realize the discount they chose isn't fulfilling, you're not an option. You're a privilege. And if they couldn't see that the first time, let them learn the hard way. Let them lose you for real. No half goodbyes, no check-ins, no lingering windows left open just in case. Shut the door, lock it, burn the damn key, and don't ever second guess it. Don't let the memories trick you into reopening wounds that took everything to close. Love is not enough when it costs you your peace, when it costs you your dignity, when it makes you shrink just to make someone else feel big. That's not love. That's self-betrayal wrapped in hope. And hope is beautiful. But hope without boundaries is how you end up on your knees in front of people who don't deserve a seat at your table. So rise. Alone, if you have to. Quiet, if that's what it takes. But rise. And don't look back. Not even to check if they're watching. Because you don't move for applause anymore. You move precisely for you.